My name is Ibele Hogeveen and I want to talk to you about food, or rather about food security. We eat food every day, we need it every day, like water, energy and shelter. Meeting those basic human needs affects the environment. Take energy for example. Use of fossil fuels leads to climate change, and the possible consequences like heat waves, droughts, sea level rise and flooding are on everybody's lips. You may be surprised to hear that the way we secure our food may have an even bigger impact on the planet. In fact, the choice of food is one of the most fundamental choices that we all can make, both for the environment and for our health. And yet, we almost take it for granted, in Europe at least. You can get whatever you need and whenever you need it in the supermarket. This apple, for example, was produced in New Zealand. Producing the food and bringing it to our dining tables is a complex process. It involves cultivation, farming, transport and retail, all geared to meet consumer needs. We call it the food system. Our current food system is far from perfect. Its most obvious flaw is unequal access. Too many people in large parts of the world still face food shortage and hunger. And elsewhere, people consume too much food of too little nutritional value. Obesity takes almost epidemic proportions, and by now it may be a bigger health threat than undernourishment. The second flaw of the food system is its sustainability, or rather, its lack of it. The global human population is projected to grow from 7 billion people today to roughly 9 billion by the end of this century. And they all need food. At the same time, people tend to eat more and more meat. In the EU, the meat share has increased over 60% in the last few decades. Meat comes from cattle, pigs and other animals, and they also need food. And that's inefficient. A kilo of meat requires about 6 times as much inputs as a kilo of vegetables. It's not a bad choice, this apple. All in all, global demand for agricultural produce may go up by 70% between now and 2070. And unless we increase productivity, that is, the yield per hectare, we will need more farmland. Much more, in fact. But the most suitable areas for agriculture have already been cultivated. Almost all plant growth in those areas is already directly or indirectly consumed by humans. And that's not without problems. Land erosion due to deforestation and unsustainable management practices is a growing problem. It's estimated that by 2030, about 1/5 of the global land area may be affected. We are simply running out of space. And besides, further deforestation would add to climate change and biodiversity loss. But that's another story, I guess. So it looks like we need to get more out of less. Europe is very good at that. Compared to the 60s, we now produce more than twice as much cereals on a slightly smaller land area. This has been made possible by technological innovations, by fertilizers, pesticides and herbicides, and was supported by agricultural subsidies. The environment, however, has suffered. Excess pesticides and nutrients, for example, run off to water bodies and risk the health of ecosystems and humans. And biodiversity on farmland has decreased rapidly. I wonder if this apple was sprayed with chemicals. Hope not. To turn the tide, several EU policies address the environmental pressures from agriculture. It would be nice if global productivity could be increased without the pollution problems we have experienced. There's certainly scope for that, particularly in developing countries. But in Europe, we can also do more. For example, by supporting organic and precision farming techniques that combine high yields on the one hand with low environmental costs. And of course, we could eat less meat. If we improve our food system smartly, environmental and human health can go hand in hand. By the way, did you know that between 30 and 40% of the food that is produced gets wasted? Something to think about the next time you throw food in the bin?